welcome on once again to another Bayou City Soccer podcast with the Orange and Blue Prince. Another here, another again, once again, talking about all Houston Dash. It's good to be on unbeaten streak for quite a while for the Houston Dash, but unbeaten can get you so much, and so we're still for short on points. So let's talk about it. Let's talk that. Let's get into it. Let's see what we can do. But as your host, Manny Olivares, but I want to introduce you as well, my co-host, who's been busy with college these days.
Oh my goodness, let's not even talk about school. Let's just be happy that the Dash are getting some results. Hello, everybody. Hopefully, everybody's having a good night. Um, Manny's been saying it. We've had a couple of draws, but we're still 2 points behind the playoff line, and I'm so excited to talk all about it.
You mean 4 points now? No.
Or
Yeah. Yeah.
8?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
bro.
4. You're right. I misread.
Man, this man, man, that East
Sleep.
Coast,
It's asleep. It's asleep.
the East Coast life, but nah, but it's all good. But it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to see. We'll dive into that in a bit. I think so many things. I think it's a good sign, but also there's kind of irritating to see. Another draw, still unbeaten streak, still a good record, but still need the points. But we also have a guest with us. You may have heard her if you listen to the Spanish uh, broadcast. We have Laura Gomez from the Deportes Nation with us. How you doing, Laura?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
All good. All good on our end.
I know, Laura, you've been covering the team officially, well, this year in the Spanish podcast, a Spanish broadcast, and knowing that being on the sidelines before and halftime and after the game, it's good to see. Have your thoughts on as well with how the season's going and everything. I overall just want to touch base on that. How is that being on the touchline and everything during the whole home season for the Dash?
I mean, I've covered the home teams, the Dynamo and the Dash, for over 13 years since the team started. So I'm older. I'm getting up there, and so I've seen the team since they were born, and I was pretty young when I started. I'll say that. But I've done everything. I mean, I've done TV, I've done radio, I've done like online and stuff like that, commentating, play-by-play, and now I'm doing sidelines since last year, but more actively this year.
Yeah.
Really being able to have like more permission to do this and do that, and more questions and things like that, and becoming part of the team, of the official voice of the Houston Dash in Spanish is pretty amazing. And it does give you a lot of intel on what they say, and how the players are what they're saying, what they're feeling, what the fans are feeling. And it's pretty amazing. I love to be at the stadium.
I know it's a good experience, especially to be close to the team atmosphere and know what they're doing. It's been great. It's been great. I think both it's needed both either English and Spanish to have that game, especially in the women's soccer, to have that openness and the accessibility to know that women's soccer is available in English and Spanish. I think mostly in English, and unless you go to Liga MX Femenil, that's in Spanish. But I think having that availability, especially for Houston Dash, especially for Houston as a Spanish community, is good to have that. But let's get into the let's go into it. Talk about this past weekend's game. Was on this past weekend. Racing Louisville against Houston Dash away at Louisville on this Friday night game. I think it was a hard match if you were at the Houston Dash. The Dash were dominant. The Dash missed huge chances, I believe, that could have changed the scoreline. Of course, it was sad, gut wrenching to see a Flint gain a free header in the 72 minute. And of course, Dash always does Dash stuff. Always get the late equalizer, the late winner at the 90th minute by Duljan's first goal, and Houston Dash Colors, but also in NWSL as well. So it's open for anyone who wants to do any thoughts on the game or how the performance went.
I mean, I guess I'll start. I think that we're at that point that every point counts. And it's stressful when you're watching, the game, whether on the sidelines or watching it in the screen. I think that, when the first goal fell, you know, she's the player that scored is tall. I think she's like 6'2", I think I heard, the Louisville player. I'm not sure, but she's pretty tall. So, I mean, to have a player with that and to be able to score, it's amazing. So I was like, okay, well, the dash is going to do dash things, and Clutch City, I guess now. So I feel like they did what they do best, and I think that a lot of people that haven't been following the dash really, I think they underestimate the team. They don't know, because sometimes it doesn't show what the team is capable. It doesn't really show on paper, or if you look online and see the stats, or perhaps like the standing where they're at right now, it doesn't really show the capabilities that they have. But I think even within this season and last season, I think that the Dash has always had what other teams perhaps don't, which is a lot of grit, a lot of persistence, and just a lot of patience too, to just keep on going and going and going until they try to get the results. And, unfortunately, it hasn't really shown in the past, because obviously they haven't made it to playoffs, but it's something that the team it's kind of like in the culture already of having to fight, teeth and claws, which is something that you don't want to happen all the time. I was able to talk to Paige Nielsen in the last game here at home, and I asked her, I'm like, so I thought you guys like to be behind on the scoreboard. And she was laughing. She's like, yeah, we were in halftime. And I told the girls, just pretend we're already down 1-0 so we can actually, score first. And, the game didn't end how they wanted it to end, but they showed that they could actually score first rather than having to do that catch-up game. But unfortunately, again, in an away game, they had to do that. But, again, it shows that grit of wanting to get there, wanting to, get that point out, playing away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of great points, and I agree with kind of how this game turned out. It was a great performance that kind of shows us the culture that Fabrice is trying to instill within this team, which has been something that we've really been lacking when it comes to dash football as of a couple of years. But I feel like we should highlight a little bit of that word that you mentioned, frustration, when it comes to these points slipping away, because throughout this latter half of the season, we've kind of been seeing this grit being displayed, all of these things, all of these fundamentals and things happening and late goals. But the question still remains of, is this sustainable? And I would argue that this is never really sustainable for a team to keep scoring in 88 like Sophie Schmidt a couple of games ago, or like 90+1 that Evelina scored in this one. I think, yes, our away form is significantly better than our home form, which is probably something that the Dash have been looking for against a team like Racing Louisville, which didn't expect to have much possession going into the game. And that's exactly how it ended up, as they got 44%. It's kind of like, okay, we know what we're going to get out of this Dash team. Can they now surprise us with those early goals, like you mentioned when you talked to Paige, with those go-ahead goals, and also solid defensive performances? All of these games have been high-scoring, or at least games where the Dash have faltered defensively. Can we see the Dash get themselves a clean sheet, not just a 0-0 against Gotham at home a couple months ago? Can we see those clean sheets start to take place? And that's really what we need to see, that consistency get realized instead of just late goal efforts.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that, Diego. I think it's just been, I think one thing you notice that the dash, I think before when you come into this, coming from this summer break, I feel like the real question is this real momentum? Is this real, or they're just being lucky? I think these past two games show that the dash is actually working on something. They're actually taking control of games. I think the game with Seattle was more convincing. I said, okay, the Dash are not just getting last minute winners. They're actually playing well. They're actually trying to do something, trying to be dominant. I think that was the narrative before. Okay, the Dash is getting lucky. The Dash getting last minute winners. But like you said, and Lara said as well, the grit, the mentality is there. The winning culture is trying to prove themselves to do something more. And I think showing that, I think for me, that will stand out was Yasmin Ryan. Yasmin Ryan this past games has becoming the Yasmin Ryan that I think that Houston Dash fans and team wanted to see her since the get go. her being a standout performer, getting the assists, getting goals. Right now, she only got the assist, but I think this is what you needed from her, the productivity in the end, and that's what you got from her. So it's coming out. It's coming a little by little, but I think now mentioning the table and everything, before this game they were only 2 points away, like you mentioned, Diego. But now with this draw, you're 4 points away. Does that seem a taller feat now, knowing the games are not going to be easy coming forward? What do you think, Laura?
I mean, it's been since the last home game in my mind. It's like you need to get those 3 points because the line keeps moving further. And now you're going to have to depend on other teams' results in order for you to make it to that playoff game, which is not a position you want to be in. It's something that, again, when I talked to one of the players, they were like, yeah, we dug ourselves into this hole and now we're desperately trying to get out of it and, try to make it to the playoffs. It's again, it's kind of like you watch those games with the calculator in hand and check, who else lost or who else got a tie, who's also neck to neck, because those other teams aren't taking it easy. Even if they're already in that threshold of the playoffs, they're still pushing that gas because in the NWSL, it's still very possible for teams who, we didn't think were going to make it can make it because it's still relatively smaller than other leagues. There's still that possibility. So there's much more head-to-head kind of competition and stress. But to me, I mean, I've been saying every point counts, and I think that they need to win each, all these games that they have left. It's like you have to win. It's, I know as a player that I played in high school, coaches are always like, you need to win this game. It's important. But no, these games are like do or die important. So I think it's something that I know the players are well aware of it. I know that, Gautreau is well aware of it. Of everyone in the Dash organization is very well aware of it. And us doing the calculations on the sidelines, we know that there's little leeway for ties or even worse losses. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. You got something to say, Diego?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, Laura, you nailed it. We're turning a hill to climb into a mountain. And I think doing those mental calculations, you see the next 5 games that we are going up against. Realistically, you at least need to get 3 points out of 2 of those games where we face against Utah and then Chicago. But then you look at the other 3 matches, San Diego, you see Washington, and then you see Orlando. Those are 3 of the top teams in the entire league. I don't know about really the chances of us going and saying, hey, that's a guaranteed win. Are we going to pull off a surprise? Maybe. We saw the last performance against Orlando and how great defensively we were before the last minute Orlando goal. There is a possibility for us to be optimistic about this, but it's time to start thinking a little more realistically because, again, only a guaranteed 3 out of the next 5 are going to be wins. I don't know. I don't know how confident I am for that to be something that the Dash can use in their advantage for a playoff push.
Yeah, exactly. It's really interesting. I think as the games are coming to an end, as the push for playoffs is coming to, do or die for most of these teams, including the Dash, you start seeing the results coming way, and it's like, okay, you thought games. We could touch upon it as well right now. The push for playoffs. I feel like the Dash had 2 games for sure that they will get result, like Utah or Chicago. But now those teams are turning results as well. Utah is actually getting better without their main player, Ali Sednar, and now their actual player. And Chicago can't lose. They're tying their games. They're down 3-0. They're gained a hat trick in the last 10 minutes. So it's like the pressure is getting hard. It's on Dash now to get their secure points. And having you, Laura, here, I think I want to get your thoughts about this stretch. Will the Dash make to the playoffs, or will they come short? I just want to hear your thoughts about it.
I mean, I think it's what I said. I'm sitting there I was joking around yesterday in the Soccer Tejas podcast of Deportes Nation. I was like, in one hand, I have a rosary, in the other hand, I have a calculator. I mean, it's the 2 things you need. And not only with the Dash, but I'm Colombian. So I'm over here trying to pray for these boys too, the national men's soccer team, because they're still not in the World Cup. I'm like, what are you guys doing? What's y'all stressing me out? So It's kind of like that's my train of thought. I think that these women are very much capable of getting those points out there. I just feel like it's a lot to ask also, and and it's not an excuse, because like I said, I've covered this team for a while now, and I know that unfortunately for the last 3 seasons or so, I know we keep hearing the rhetoric of we're rebuilding, we're rebranding, we're we keep hearing it, but unfortunately it's just the cards that these women have been dealt with. I mean, we've seen the turnaround of coaches, of players, of owners. So it's a lot to take in also, because you need to have also that kind of tranquility or steadiness and that kind of culture in the club for players to just have one thing to focus on, which is, win, and not to have all these other things that they have to worry about, which is, things that had happened in the club itself that is out of the control of the players. So I'm not saying that's an excuse, but coming into this year, it's also a new player, new players, a new coach, a new, mentality. And it's like, you have to adapt to it and you have to try to do the best as a professional. But having clubs that have been so stable for so many seasons, it does tend to show what clubs have been together for longer, or that culture that has been strong, compared to the teams that are just, either joining the NWSL or newish, or, different things are going on. So if you ask me, can the Dash make it to the playoffs each season? It's sad, because I say yes. I think that they can make it. They have a lot of things that are going for them. If you see them play, and not look at the results, you'll say this can be a winning team. Unfortunately, again, whether it's luck or bad strategies, bad plays, it hasn't ended up well for the Dash in the last seasons to make it to the playoffs. But there's been 1 or 2 seasons that I'm like, this is a season that they're going to make it to the playoffs, and they don't make it. So it's frustrating to see again that they're in this kind of hole that now they're going to have to start depending maybe on results of other teams, like I mentioned before. And having to win all these games and having to really say, well, and have people tell them, because I know Houston is an underdog, the Dash. And I know that if we look into even like the betting sites, each game they have the Dash as losing, which is, it's always interesting to me. But I feel like these women they're smart. They know how to play. They have good players. They have talented players. We've talked about some of them right now. It's gonna go down to also results of other teams of whether a player decides to leave or hopefully not get injured. I never wish it upon anyone, or like they had a bad game, or things like that, because I know that the teams that are coming up are tough. But the Dash has done it many times, of having a team that on paper looks amazing and everybody's saying they're going to lose 5-0, and the Dash goes head to head. And either wins or ties. And that's one of the things that I honestly feel like the Dash players aren't scared of big names. And I think that's something that has to be important, and give kudos to them.
Yeah. It's go ahead, Diego. I know you
got. Yeah, I would like to slightly just disagree on the fact that like this is the same Dash team that we've seen in years past. I don't really remember a time where I can really say with confidence that at this point in the season, I would say, hey, this is a team that might make the playoffs. Especially last season, we definitely did not see that. 2 years ago, I would argue the same, and maybe even 3. I think culturally, we are looking at a team that's far more optimistic than something that we've seen in the past. So that is something that I feel like we should highlight a little bit more, because, I mean, you mentioned it. New coach, new strategy, new culture, new mindset. And we're halfway through the season, coming off a last place finish, and we're fighting for the playoffs. I think, yes, we counted the mentality. We've talked about it so many times, but I feel like this is really the moment to ask ourselves a different question of, even if we miss the playoffs and get that 9 or that 10 spot, maybe even 11, is this considered a failed season? I would really argue that it's not, because if we go into this offseason going, hey, we're going to keep building on Fabrice, we're going to keep giving him trust, we get some solid results, even if we miss the playoffs, and we keep making pretty solid signings, I think this is something that we can say, hey, we were a complete improvement from the season before, and now we actually have something to build off of.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say because I think it's like your goal line is to make playoffs. If you don't miss playoffs, it's technically a failed season in the end of itself because it's there's nothing to play for. There's no cup
Mhm.
tournament. There's just the playoffs. But I think I get what you're saying, Diego. Again, coming from second to last place and go and getting up at the table, it's a result in some ways, but still not a result of not getting to the playoffs. It's hard, especially now since the league is it's just 15 teams. It's so much you can do in that span of time, and so much results can go your way, and so it's you have to put yourself out there and get that result. It's just very hard to see that coming forward. But I think it's good right now what the Dash are doing. It just needs to continue moving forward. I think uh, uh, what I wish for is that the Dash can build it on next season and make it better. I think it's hard to say that and believe that because it feels like we say that now and then end of the season it's like okay we scrap everything. But I think there is signs for rebuilding. For the rebuild that we're in right now to continue and to move forward. But I think one thing that really put a lot of positivity, I think per se, was today's press conference with Angela, the president of women's soccer, discussing about, so far in this Dash, in her term as Dash president, and also this transfer window. I just want to get your thoughts, Diego, of what she's commented on the culture, of course, of what she has done in the recruitment process. I don't know what I know. Laura has been there, but I just want to get your thoughts first, Diego, on that, especially this part of the season.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't able to tune in because I had work, but that is neither here nor there. I thought, honestly, this was kind of something that I expected because Angela's a type of person that would bring so much experience into this new Dash team. We saw her work with Angel City and really what she did to build the culture there. And I mean, I don't really know if it's an argument, rather more probably a fact that Angel City has one of the healthiest cultures in women's soccer here in the United States, whether it be its relationship with fans, the infrastructure, and I would say also the team's success. They have been making the playoffs or fighting for titles very consistently. Um, I think I appreciated her fact that she went and stated all of these differences between, oh, changing the culture is just signing 3 players. No, there's something deeper than it. There's making the right staff signings, like a Jason Lowe or something like that. There's these little intangibles of having things that you change within yourself and within like everything around you that isn't just signing Elisa Boatin or Clarissa Laris. Like there are these things that you can do outside of that. I feel like this is something where we can kind of relate to previous Dash seasons where we've signed like a Maria Sanchez, like a Diana Ordonez, and said, "Hey, we're changing the culture. We're bringing the like Hispanic grit and flair into the Dash." Like I grew up in Monterrey. I like both of these players play for Tigres now. Like I never once was really sold on that idea because all the little things weren't building up to that core idea. Now we're kind of getting that reverse where we're like, okay, we're getting possibly underwhelming signings, but getting these like small foundational things patched up. That way we can start building confidence with the front office bit by bit. Like let's take Lisa Boatin, for example. We talked a little bit about this pre-show, but I mean Juventus carries a huge name, but particularly because of its men's team's dominance, not really its women's game, which is the Serie A for women's soccer is still very new and very developing. And so I think many people look at the signing on paper and they're like, "Whoa, this is a massive signing," which I think it's a massive signing, not just because it's a player with experience and whatnot, but it's because the front office is taking a look at the roster and what's going on, and they're seeing an Avery Patterson being overloaded with the ball every single possession, and they're saying, okay, how can we differentiate our play? How can we potentially switch? And those are the kinds of small decisions that I'm like, okay, I hear Angela tell us about this, and I see her doing it. which is something that I really appreciate when it comes to culture building.
Yeah, I think it's a really good. I think I like how she mentioned a little bit of that, and then how she reiterate that they weren't looking for her specifically, but they saw her what she can bring and her availability is like things will be a perfect addition for the team, especially to bring that balance and everything. I know Laura, you've been on this press conference, so I just want to know your take about what she thought about the team and the transfer window.
I mean, like you mentioned before, they talked about kind of like what they were looking for. And, one of the questions that I asked, I'm like, are you looking to bring any homegrown talent? I want to see that more because I know that we have a lot of college women here that play. So for me, it'll be like one of the smartest choices to really bring in and to go look at women that are already at a good level and they're trying to transition to the professional level. The Dash doesn't really have a lot of competition when it comes to other professional women's soccer, except for Dallas Trinity. And that's kind of fresh, right? And it's not the NWSL. So the NWSL still has that leg up when you come to women's soccer. So for me, I would love to see more homegrown players in a sense. I know we had Barbara Olivieri. She's no longer here in the US and the NWSL. She's with Tigres alongside, they're taking a lot of players from the Dash. So, I don't know, guys, can we trade? And meanwhile, all this is happening, Owaji ends up in freaking Orlando, and I'm like, why is she not? We should have made an even trade, but I think it's smart to do that. But I do really want to see more women from Texas. I did love when they signed Maria Sanchez. I'm going to disagree. I did when they signed her. I really did, because I saw her play with Tigres and I feel like she could do a lot of things that other players weren't able to do, which would also make the community, which is largely, Latinos or Latinas or, some kind of trace in the Latino community, really unite them. Here, when I've gone to cover Tigres matches, it's packed. It's a packed house. So, and even with the women over there, it tends to be a good audience. So I was like, maybe that can translate in some sort of sense here. It did, because I used to see, now that they were gone, you don't see it as much. Little girls and little boys with Mexican national shirts, because she was also in the Mexican national, and so was Ordonez, which she's also from Texas. So it's those little things that perhaps, in my opinion, I feel like the Dash in the marketing sense didn't know how to take advantage of at the moment to really make them be part of the community. I feel like maybe, Maria Sanchez was so connected to the people from Monterrey. I mean, people were like obsessed and in love with her. And she had that kind of effect here, but I think she wasn't here long enough to really make her into the full icon that she could have been. And I'm not saying just hire any Latina or anybody that speaks Spanish, bring her over. We don't want that, because we've seen the Dynamo do that and has it worked out? No, it hasn't. So I don't want that. But I do want purposeful signings as far as like local homegrown talent, because I'll sit here till my last dying breath and say that there's a lot of women in Texas that have the talent to be professionals. And I want to see that be made into like seeing them go into the Dash, because we've seen that it's successful. We also had Micaela Abam, that she also was, homegrown player, and she wasn't here a lot. She's also in the Liga MX right now. So I don't know. I just want to see more of that. And that's why it's one of my questions, really, because I want more opportunities for women in Texas. I mean, we have U of H here, we have Rice, we have just in Houston. You look further, I mean, we have a lot of college professional athletes that I think can translate perfectly to the Dash. And there's a lot of other players in the NWSL that are from Texas, which their names kind of escaped, but they're not playing with the Dash, they're playing with other teams. And I'm like, why? So it's just something that maybe as a Texan, I want to really have those women have those opportunities, and for us to take advantage of their talent and have them here in the Houston Dash.
Laura, I think you bring in so many good points with that, and I want to just hit you with a question. I'm someone who like basically 24/7 works with a college women's soccer team, and for a lot of the players that like are ready to take their games to the next level, at least the conversation has always been the draft, getting ready for the draft. I kind of want to ask you a little question of like, hypothetically, because I know some talks have been made about academies and more fully fledged out things. which do you think would be like a better step in creating that dream scenario for you? Having like an MLS type academy system where it's providing like a full pipeline where it's, oh, we don't even think of maybe college and we just go straight to pro, or we do something like just stop really emphasizing on the draft and start thinking, hey, since we don't have this space for college athletes, we need to look at them like throughout the whole season. Like, how would you kind of like approach that situation?
I mean, that's a hard ass question. You're asking me to. I mean, what is this? I mean, I would have to process for a couple of days, honestly. But at the top of my head, when I came to the U.S., I was young, but my dad played semi-pro soccer in Colombia, and for him, this whole draft thing was like, "What do you mean? What's a draft?" Like, and even myself, I'm like, okay, well, when I started to go into more sports as a teenager and drafts, I'm like, what's a draft, or why are they drafting people? What's going on?
Yeah.
And in Colombia, let's say like with Atlético Nacional, they have like, I'm trying to translate it to English, like the minor leagues, I guess, and they can, draw from those players from like the cantera, right? So would that be here? I think that, the Dynamo and the Dash kind of had that. Michelle, Bam, she was not Michelle, Micaela, she was one of the first ones that kind of really went through that process and actually made it out. But here it hasn't been the same. Like if you look at like Dallas, the men's team, they've been able to pull a lot of those players from what they have with the youth, right? So Houston, unfortunately, hasn't really done that. I would say 100% successful. I don't have all the stats on the top of my head, but even with the Dynamo, I want to say there was one player. Now he was sold, I want to say like 2 seasons ago to LA. I can't remember his name right now. Memo. There you go. So he is also one of the ones that went through the whole process, but I think that's the only one that I can think of. I mean, maybe there's one or maybe one or two more, but besides that, he was the only one. So, I think that more needs to be done to kind of facilitate that. Because I don't want to say I just want to draw from like the cantera or from the youth program, because I think that we're gonna miss out on players because it's expensive, right? And soccer for me should be accessible, but if you see a lot of the leagues around here in Texas, it's like 4,000 or 5,000 for one season for a kid. And Maria Sanchez was very open about that. Well, where she came from, where she played in the U.S., she didn't have all those opportunities sometimes to be in the best leagues because they're expensive. And as we know, sometimes that also affects Latinas to be able to go and further their game because they don't have the economic structure to be able to play in those leagues. So it's interesting. It's a lot to go into.
100%.
But I'm just trying to hit like those little things that I've always thought that, we should work. So I think that there needs to be a compromise between both, because I can't say I just want to do the youth because that's, it would be an amazing pipeline, but I also don't want to leave out the talented players that for whatever reason they haven't been able to make it to the youth programs to be less looked at or have less opportunities, because we're going to miss out on talented players. So I think there needs to be some kind of adjustment or middle ground. I don't have the answer right now. Maybe in a couple weeks we can come back and maybe I can, I don't know, ask ChatGPT what she thinks that we can do. But I think that's kind of like where my mind has always been. I don't know the answer to it. I know that something has to change to make it better. And we can look at other cities, maybe even Dallas, how they've done that to be successful too.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree that there is no like one true answer in this, but I will say I like where your head's at.
Yeah, I think it's a problem as well. Not only just the Houston, but also the NWSL. It's I think you have seen so much how the college system has provided for the national team, the U.S. national team, how strong has been. Winning 4 World Cups, usually that most of the time without a league in your country, and yet all because of the college system. So I think it's good news. Rumors still hasn't finalized yet about the second league in the NWSL to some clubs. So basically MLS looks pro level ish for the NWSL. So there is some gap coming in, but I wish it was a little bit more detailed and see how that structure and continue with that college system, but also offering the opportunity for the academy for each team. So it's still in the works. It just details need to come out more, because I think players like that's been in college or trying to go in sense of high school wants to be an opportunity, and so it just needs to have that branch. And I think Angela mentioned that a little bit and try and see how we can continue not only just for right now but also for the future. As I think for me, what a positive sign, I'll mention is that Angela gave the opportunity for like Rebecca and Zoe to go on loan in Spain in the first division. Where sometimes I think in the past they will keep them just because we need the head count. But now she's like, these players need to play. These players need to grow. So it's a good sign. It's a good sign. It's just a slower than you want it for the end of yourself. But I think is thinking 3 to 4 years instead of okay, what do I need to do right now? So it's a good sign. It's a good sign. We see the results coming to fruition. We see, but just it. I think for Dash fans, you just give it a little bit more time. I think her answers and the way she's thinking out her plan with the team and the technical staff, it's coming through. It's just you want the results on paper because that's what you need right
Yeah.
now. So now for this week, next week, I was like, man, I don't know what day it is, but this weekend, Sunday, if you're Sunday night football, but for soccer, but I'm joking. Football, mejor dicho.
Sunday night
Uh,
football.
I know. It's,
Yes.
don't be watching Sunday night football. I know football's coming back, but don't be watching that. Sunday night, San Diego Wave against the Houston Dash. The Houston Dash will be away at San Diego for this match. I used to call it the Maria Sanchez match, but now not anymore. So I don't know what to call it now anymore. So, but it's gonna be a really, really hard game to predict. Even though I think it's really interesting that San Diego hasn't been lightning as they were before the break. Three draws recently, losing to Racing Louisville and winning just against Bay FC. That's the only positive results they have. But yet they're still third in the table. Still, I kind of almost secure that playoff spot. I think soon enough. But I think how would the Dash get a result on this game? Diego, I want to go for you. What do you predict, or how would the Dash approach this game?
I mean, I feel like we need to kind of take a similar approach to how a team like Louisville would face us. We are very clearly going to be like looked at just like how Laura mentioned. Like a lot of these games were viewed as the underdogs, but for this one, I feel like maybe this leaks within the team as well, where that mentality is like starting to crack a little bit. That's exactly when you kind of need to say, okay, they might beat us on speed, they might beat us on strength, they might beat us on technicality even, or finesse, movement on the ball, whatever. They're not going to beat us on effort. So they're going to have to expect a team like San Diego is going to want all of the possession. They're going to have more shots on target. They're going to be statistically dominant in this game. But the Dash, what they need to do is just buckle up, get their one opportunity on the fast break or an error, and then just make it count. That's the kind of game that they need to play, because we saw at home when Houston wanted to play San Diego's way, which is quick, technical, stringing passes together, and that just simply did not work. I understand that it was like a failed comeback of sorts where we did put in a brilliant second half, but we don't need a half in this game. We need a full 90 minutes of just gritty, sometimes kind of just a disgusting game of soccer. You need that Gotham 0-0 game. You need that energy in order to get some points here. The head coach of my school literally said today, hey, score. It doesn't matter if it's a 30-yard banger or the most nasty goal that you're never going to look at ever again. Scoring is scoring. And this is kind of the emphasis that needs to take place, where it's like, doesn't matter how you're going to get a result, you need to get it.
And you, Laura, how do you view this matchup?
Hard AF. I mean, I mean, but I do agree what he just mentioned. I think that, this is where I think that the Dash is really going to miss Olivieri. Because Olivieri is or was that kind of player in the Dash that really never gave up. I know that sometimes people are like, oh, she's getting too heated, but you need that kind of fan. Like, give me the ball, I want to throw it in, let's go. That kind of passion, that kind of, body to body kind of soccer. If you do the play, you have to be a little bit stronger, or get that ball through because I'm going to get that ball through. I think that's an area that she's going to be missed for this game. But I do think that it's important to really score first. I think that if they're able to score first, no matter if it's a pretty goal or an ugly goal, like you mentioned, it doesn't matter, score. Like, I think that the Dash has done an amazing job this season of taking more risks of scoring. And I think that they do have the advantage that they have players that aren't considered goal scorers, yet they're scoring, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a little advantage, I think, that the Dash has, that we have players that are considered the ones that are, looked at as the ones that are going to score, and they go out there and score, because I think that they have that mentality of like, we need to, put it in the back of the net. And I think that even more so now, they need to do it. I mean, we've seen Paige Nielsen score, Schmidt. I mean, we've seen players that we don't think that are the ones that usually are the ones that score. So I think this is a game that they have to look at that. And if I was Gautreau, I was like, you know what, Jane, I don't even care if you score. Whoever scores, you need to score. That's how I would tell them in the locker room. I'm like, who wants to score? All right, whoever. I mean, I think that's one of those games that you just have to play like that.
Yeah, I think so. It's gonna be it's just a really interesting game. I think for me, I think the Dash should be dominant as they did with Seattle, as they did with Louisville, but finish their chances and get a result. I think not let an opportunity defensive mistake or defensive just that I said the just not getting caught off guard just to get that conceding goal and just continue what they do best is just being dominant, control the ball, and quick on counterattack and scoring. So I think that's what you need to do for this matchup. I think if they do that and also defend against Cascarino, who has been on fire, she has cooled down a bit as of recently, but still a player they need to watch out for. And Dolly as well, who has been a master on the midfielder as well. So two players I think that need to look out for and make sure for that. Before we end it up, I just want to get your predictions, final result. Diego, your score line for this game.
Normally, Manny, I'm the positive one, but I'm going to be a little negative and say that the streak is unfortunately going to end. I think we're going to lose 2-1. I think, yes, we are going to give it a fight, but I think Cascarino and San Diego are just such a talented team that I just think you're looking at these next fives, and I don't think this is one of the ones where the Dash are going to get a result.
All right, and you, Laura?
I'm going to disagree with him again.
Okay.
This is a second.
No, I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong here.
Well, no, I think that it can either be like a 1-1 or it can be horribly wrong and it could be like a 3-0. But I just, I think it's going to be a tight game. I think that, again, what Manny said, we have to take advantage of mistakes. So I think that if the Dash sees those mistakes and takes advantage of them and actually finishes, I think that they can take the 1-1 for sure.
Yeah, I think I'll go the opposite side of all of it. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think it's going to be 3-2. I think this game is going to be open. It's going to be very, very explosive. Johannes has been a good coach, especially for the Arsenal side. I think if you know him well, I think he knows to be pragmatic and yet to be very explosive. So it's going to be a really good game for. I say 3-2 because I feel like. Of course, I feel like Larissa might start, and of course, Lisa Boateng. According to Angela and the Dash social media, she's available. So if she can bring that spark as she's brought for the Italian national team for this Dash side, especially maybe in the second half, I don't think she was going to start, but I think she's going to bring something to the team in the second half. That could be the spark that's needed to make the difference, to make the winning goal as well. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this game goes. It's going to be very tight. So if you're there Sunday night, please do not tune into Sunday Night Football, but tune into on ESPN for San Diego Wave and the Houston Dash. But thank you all. Thank you, Laura, for coming to join us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
You want to tell everyone where they can find you at?
What's my Laura Gomez news everywhere. That's it.
Yeah, so please always look out for her also at Deportes Nation before the game and mid halftime and after the
Yes.
game for her analysis on the game and her sideline. So and in the Spanish commentary as well. So we
See.
appreciate you. Appreciate you coming out with us, and thank you all for coming out as well. To if you're looking for us at BayouCitySoccer.net, but also that's also our name for our social media platform: Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, X, Threads, Blue Sky, anything you feel like you need a social media platform. We're always there. But thank you for our sponsors, Ugly Guppy, Lotes Bravos, and We Got Soccer for helping us to continue on. So hopefully next week something happens positively for the Dash and see how much we can push to the playoffs. So, but thank you all and see you next Wednesday.